justice for all.
And roll call.
Tim Balzer.
Here.
Mike Woldig.
Here.
Noel Deeb.
Here.
Jeannie Long.
Here.
Jessica Mead. Mary Newfeld. Here. Danny Pyatt.
Here.
J.D. Schrader.
Here.
And Andy Mary.
Yes. And we'll go on to look for a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I move the board approve the minutes of the June 20, 2019 special board meeting, June 23, 2019 regular Board of Education meeting, July 9 special board meeting retreat, financial report for June 2019, consideration of current bills, checks number 10099 through 10150, and number 3001 through 3054 in the amount of $514,423.23. ACH's number 181901478 through 181901542 and 192000001 through 192000060 in the amount of $1,718,000. Oh, let's trade that. $1,071,815.93, and one wire transfer in the amount of $41,357.26 for a total of $1,627,596.42.
I'll second that.
Any comments or discussion? Roll call.
Mike Woldig.
Yes.
Noel Deeb.
Yes.
Jeannie Long.
Yes.
Mary Newfeld. Yes. Danny Pyatt.
Yes.
J.D. Schrader.
Yes.
Jim Balzer.
Yes.
And Andy Murray.
Yes. And Tim, is there anyone signed in there?
No.
Okay, so we'll move on to new business and a presentation from Future Forward.
Curtis, I will ask you to introduce yourself since I am uncertain of your last name. I apologize.
Oh,
Is it
sure.
on here?
It's really difficult there.
Yeah.
Curtis Jones.
We're going to move.
Yeah, we're going to move so we can.
Okay, yeah, sorry. Wasn't sure the format you guys had. You should have just said we're all leaving because we don't want to watch your presentation. That would have been really funny if you just all walked out and then you sat behind there and screamed to each other. All right, let me make sure I can this all work here. Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Curtis Jones. Okay, that's Jones. And I'm from University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, and I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about the Future Forward program and some of the results that we had for this year. We've got some of the background here. I'll go pretty quickly through the presentation because you might have questions, and I want to give you enough time to answer questions and have a discussion about it if you're so interested in doing that. But a little background around the program. You probably know a lot about this, but just in case, it's a literacy program focused on K through second grade students. Some districts are doing third grade as well, but usually it's kindergarten through second grade. Combines one-on-one tutoring with family engagement, and nationally, that combination of services is what has really been identified as what makes Future Forward an innovative program. If you look nationally, you've got family engagement programs, you've got skill-based tutoring literacy programs. You don't really see anywhere else where you have a combination of those factors to provide instruction to students. My office at the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee is conducting the independent evaluation of the Future Forward program. This past year, it was being done in 15 schools, 7 school districts across 3 states. So it's Wisconsin, Alabama, and South Carolina participating in the project. The overall study is covering this year, this past year, this upcoming year, and the year after. Real quickly, some of the basic kind of background on the research for this project. We also were involved in the original study of Future Forward, which at that time was called Spark, so it's a program formerly known as Spark, in Milwaukee, and that was investing in innovations grant to the Department of Ed. That went from 2011 to 2016. As part of that, we did 2 randomized studies of the Spark program, basically through those studies, where we were able to randomly pick kids to receive the program or into controlled conditions, we found that Spark had a positive impact on reading achievement, literacy development, and regular school day attendance. Both studies were reviewed by the IES What Works Clearinghouse and are in their database of effective programs. And just to kind of get a sense about what kind of impact we were looking at, that we found that the program had a bigger impact, much bigger impact on students with lower baseline literacy development. And so what all of these numbers really say, that the main one that you're probably interested in here is this 76%. And basically what that says is the average kid who received Spark scored better than 76% of the kids in the control group at the end of their participation. So they were in the 76th percentile at the end of their participation. Okay. And so we looked at the PALs, which is something that you've been doing here, I guess maybe not so much moving forward. But another way to look at it was what percentage of students are meeting literacy benchmarks at the beginning of the program and at the end of the program. What we found is that only 10% of the students who were below benchmark at the beginning of the program, who were in the control condition, met benchmark at the end of the program, while 62% who were in that, who actually received the program, who were below benchmark at the beginning of the program, were meeting benchmark by the end of the program.
So this is the original data, or just
this is the original data? Okay, just to give you a sense about where we're coming from, and then I'll get to some of your data. Now, the other thing to consider is this intervention for the original program was for 2 years. So you had 2 years of participation, in Spark / Future Forward compared to control group. This year, obviously, it's 1 year of participation. So current study design, just to clarify this a little bit, this year was considered a pilot implementation, and we really kind of weren't planning to do any type of impact analysis to give people enough space to kind of figure out the program, figure out how to implement it, get the people hired, trained, all that kind of stuff. But we also wanted to look at the impact of the program off the radar of the Department of Ed to some extent. So we're not actually reporting any of the results for this past year to the Department of Ed. So it's still, not necessarily as high a stakes as we'll have next year or the year before. But we didn't want to do a randomized study either. So what we looked at was doing what's called a regression discontinuity study, where you pick students based off of the ones with the most need would get the program. So the ones with the lowest baseline reading literacy scores, PAL scores, receive the program up until cutoff based on the space capacity of each school. People above the cutoff are your comparison group. People below the cutoff are obviously receiving Future Forward. It's viewed as approximating a randomized study near the cutoff. So students who, let's say the cutoff was 20 on the PALs, students who get an 18 are pretty much the same as students who get a 22. So the only difference is, one group's getting Future Forward, one group isn't. So that's kind of the logic behind what we did this past year. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. I don't know what you guys have gotten before, so I'll just quickly kind of show you. There were 30 students who received Future Forward this year. 77 students were part of that comparison group. These are the demographics of the students who received Future Forward this past year, mostly students who were on free reduced lunch, mostly white, majority male, about even between East and West schools. Tutoring began in December. 2 students dropped. 18 students of the original 30 received Title I services from the school as well. So that's another kind of thing to keep in mind as we're looking at some of these outcomes. The average participant received 46 tutoring sessions, and their family was successfully contacted an average of 5 times during their participation in the program. Okay. Some of the literacy results, looking at this is, I think, the clearest kind of look at what kind of growth you're seeing from your students are looking at those PALS literacy benchmarks. We know that the program has greatest impact on students at the lowest end of the distribution, which really is reflected when you're looking at people not making that benchmark on the PALS. At the beginning of the school year, in the fall when they took the PALS, 3 out of 30 participants were meeting benchmarks in their grade literacy. At the end of the year, it was 35%, so 9 out of 27. It's not the same results as we saw for the PALS in Milwaukee, but again, if you think about it, this is 1 year of participation as compared to 2 years of participation. So we're thinking that this is consistent with what we found in Milwaukee. Yeah. Well, there's no control group, there's a comparison group. And no students in the comparison group started the year below benchmark. Because there's a cutoff of a certain score, and pretty much everybody, nearly everybody was below benchmark who received Future Forward. Everybody was above. Everybody who was in that comparison group met the benchmark.
I get that. So how do you compare the students that also, or how do you vet out the students who are also receiving other interventions that were school-based? How do you know?
No, that's a really good question, and I'm fine jumping ahead. Basically.
Well, that's okay. You can wait.
No, this is fine. I'd rather have a discussion than sit up here and talk to you guys. I'd rather talk with you than to you. So there's a couple of things that we can do. Well, it's not going to be an issue moving forward because we'll be randomly picking kids in this upcoming school year of the students who are, in need of literacy development and help. And so some of those kids would be in Title I services, some of them would not be. But there would be the number who would be in it and not in it would be the same in both participant and comparison groups. So then you're comparing apples to apples, right, in those results. The other thing that we can do, and we're happy to do secondary analysis on this, is look at historically. I mean, you've probably been doing PALS for several years now, maybe like 5 or 6 years. Historically, what percentage of your students who were failing to meet benchmark at the beginning of the year in kindergarten, first and second grade, met benchmark at the end of the year? And most of those kids received Title I programming, and just like they did this past year. So you can chart out over time what's typical, and then you can say, okay, well, what percent met benchmark this year compared to last year, the year before, the year before, year before. It's not like something that you're going to publish in a big journal about it, but it gives you a sense about what the difference is in the impact of Title I plus Future Forward versus Title I by itself. So we can do that. We would just need to have a side conversation about how we get the data, or if you have someone that does some data analysis for you, but we'd be happy to work with them to kind of help them with that analysis. All right. Now this year, not everybody got Title I. I think it was 18 of the 30 received Title I programming. We have that information for all of the sites, like how many students in every school participating in the grant received Title I. And what we're going to try to do is disaggregate those things. We're probably not going to be able to successfully do that in an individual site, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to, initiative-wide, say, here was the impact of Title I across the initiative, and here's the impact of Future Forward on top of that. Because across the initiative, there's a decent number of students who didn't get Title I, who also got Future Forward, versus the other way around.
So you just record it in your regression, Title I or not?
Yeah.
Hopefully it pulls that up.
Well, yeah, and this is the kind of stuff that we do. So these are just really quickly, we'll do some regression, some statistical analysis, and there's different ways you have to weight your who's in the analysis based on how close they are to the cutoff. So people really close to the cutoff get weighed a lot more than someone that's far away from the cutoff, because those are the people that are most similar to each other, the people near the cutoff on either side of the cutoff. But this is the kind of thing that we look at, like in kindergarten, everybody, like the cutoff was around 30. So if you look here at the x-axis, this is the beginning of the year score. Everybody to the left was in Future Forward. Everybody to the right did not receive Future Forward. You can then plot out what is expected of their performance based off of where they ended up at the end of the year. So you see some students here who were scoring really low at the beginning of the year, who scored really high at the end of the year, and that's why you see this really steep curve, and this would be a promising result, right? Because this means that students who are in Future Forward, if they had scored higher, you're expecting them to do better than the students who were in the comparison group. Okay. Now this wasn't, again, we're talking small numbers of people here, you know, within a grade, so you're not able to say definitively this is like a really strong relationship. And you almost saw no relationship between pre and post for your first grade students. And this is what this is right here, is the relationship is almost 0. So
Your R value? I can't see that.
yeah, our value for that is R squared is 0.06.
Say what was it for the first one?
Like 0.14. And it's R squared versus correlation, so the correlation is probably 0.4, you know, in the first, and this would be a 0.2. So not very great. Second grade, it was a little bit better though, 0.6 R squared for both groups. You can kind of see here that the Future Forward participants are expected to do better than the comparison group. Just looking at, you know, what pre-test they had, pre-test score versus post-test score. And so, you know, we plot all this out to just kind of get a sense about what the data look like, what are the expected results. We then statistically put it all together and combine it with other sites to say overall what the results are. But it's messy when you're using this method at an individual site. Next year, we'll have randomized study. We'll be able to say more definitively what the impact was in every site participating. It still won't be perfect because the sample size is not very big in any given site, but it'll give us more freedom to tell you more definitively what the results are.
How do you vet out I know you have a family engagement and an SEL component. How do you vet out if it's the reading intervention or if it's the family engagement intervention that helped to see the gains that you're hoping to see?
No, that's a good question. What we hope to be able to do, and it would be depending on the data availability from each of the sites, is look at sibling pairs. What we did in Milwaukee for the first study was we found siblings, and it was like 20% of the kids that one student was a participant and their sibling was not. So it's a good number of kids in the schools that we were able to look at. Well, all of the parents are in the program. So all of the parents for both kids are getting parent engagement services. The students though, one student's getting tutoring and one isn't. And so you can look at what their reading achievement results are compared to comparison, like control group students, siblings of participants who weren't participants, and just other participants. And so what we found is that the literacy results of participants were better than their siblings. Okay, so that justifies like that the tutoring component itself is leading towards the reading improvement. The attendance, which is something we haven't done yet for this year, attendance results were the same for both like siblings. So they both showed the same, roughly the same improvement in their attendance rates compared to control group students. So siblings of participants did better for their attendance than did control group students. But they did about the same as their siblings who were in the program. So the program itself is designed through the parent piece to address attendance issues as they come up and some chronic absenteeism. We're also looking at social emotional learning this year, things like that. So we're able to, through sibling pairs, kind of disaggregate the different parts of it.
What type of stuff are they working on during the tutoring?
What's that?
What type of stuff are they working on during the literacy tutoring? Because it's during the school day, right?
It's during the school day. It's a pull-out program during non-core classes. They do. There's a specific curriculum that like wordplay. There's a tutor read aloud section. There's they use like phonics type of work for some of the younger kids on coding boxes, things like that. So there's a whole lot of different techniques that they use to kind of inform the work. And I think it's fair to say that it's somewhat individualized for each student, exactly what they're choosing to work on with each kid.
How many of the people are delivering the intervention?
Well, how many?
We have 6 tutors, 3 at each side, 3 at East, 3 at West, and then increasing into next year. Right, 4, at least 4 each.
Can you factor out if one tutor happens to be like a rock star, and the other one are more average, just one kid's one?
Well, you think, and then you end up with like, you can't really tell with the data, because you only have like 4 or 5 kids working with a tutor. Just through, if you randomly assign kids according to how well they're going to do on the post-test, you're going to have some tutors who look really great. And it's not because of the tutor, it's just that you're randomly, random selection bias. So you really can't say just with 1 year. I mean, if you had data on a tutor across multiple years, you'd be able to say, okay, well, the students who get this tutor typically are doing better on achievement tests and things like that. But, we don't think anything.
So how do you keep, if you can individualize, if they're supposed to individualize, how do you keep consistency in the intervention then? And say that it's about the reading intervention?
Well, the reading intervention is, it's a set of tools. It's not, and I've looked at different things like reading recovery, success for all, and things like that. And I think those are more predetermined what you're supposed to do from day to day. There is a lesson plan for this that you use to kind of plan out your lesson that gets approved by the site manager, and then there's specific tools that you're supposed to use. But a lot of it's supposed to be based off of what you're hearing from the teacher that they need to work on, and where that student has been, like what's working for that student, what do they need help in, and things like that. So it's additional support that you can't necessarily say, this student got this on this day, but they got support in the areas that their tutor, the program manager, and their teacher thought they needed help in. So it's not a strictly defined program per se.
How are the demographics? I know that you're working with the boys in various boys and chapters of the Boys and Girls Club. How were the districts selected, and how do they compare from one region to the other? And was it a factor of the structure of the Boys and Girls Club that led to Anago's selection, or can you explain that a little bit?
Well, I don't know how you originally got, here we go.
Angel Zimmerman happened to be friends with someone who in Milwaukee.
Dave Newton?
I can't remember who it was, and who knew that this program was going to be expanding into rural areas. And she was the first one to step up and say, we'd take it, we'd house it at Boys and Girls Club. And originally, we were only supposed to be one site, but Portage County was also selected as a rural site, and they were unable to form a relationship between their school district in order to make it happen, so we got to have a second site because of that. So we are the only, we're considered one site technically.
Well, there's two schools for the
Two schools.
purposes of the grant, but we're
Yeah.
treating you for the evaluation as one site because you both were reasonably close together in smaller schools, but maybe not moving forward. We'll have to
Yeah.
think about it.
So then the second half is how do the various districts compare demographically?
It's really all over the place, and that's something that we're gonna look at once we have like full data to analyze. Is half the sites were considered rural sites according to federal definitions of rural. It was required for the grant to have at least half of the sites be rural sites. But Milwaukee Public Schools is still part of it. They're not very rural. Then there's like Huntsville, Alabama, they're not very rural. The three sites that are in South Carolina are all rural sites. All of the sites have a majority of low-income pre-reduced lunch students, so there's some commonality there. Racially, it's all over the place. The Milwaukee sites are nearly 100% African American or Hispanic. There's one Hispanic majority site. The ones in South Carolina are nearly entirely African American. The sites in Alabama are both majority white sites, but everybody in the program is African American because it was a desegregation order that brought the students to those two schools from schools that were closed down. And so they was forced busing students to the schools, and they didn't know what to do with the students, so they were happy to get some help. So yeah, it's really all over the place, but we will look at the end of the day, what was the impact in rural schools compared to the urban schools, and then other types of by grade level, kindergarten, first grade, second grade, things like that. Because it hasn't been in rural schools before, you guys. I mean, it was in Milwaukee since like 2007. The South Carolina sites actually did try to do some of it a couple of years ago, but it wasn't through a structured grant program or anything like that.
How do you predict it'll vary versus
That's a great question. We think that the parent engagement is going to be very different in urban versus rural sites. What that looks like, how often someone gets contacted, their participation in family events will be very different. So as far as implementation, we're expecting some big differences between rural and urban for the family engagement part of the program. The tutoring itself within the classroom, within the future forward room, is that should look pretty similar to both rural and urban places. The impact of that we think should be pretty similar too. There's nothing about a student who's behind in literacy who is rural that suggests that they're going to take phonics instruction differently than a student in an urban environment who's behind in their literacy development. The whole point of these types of instructional devices is to get past all of that. They've done a lot of research on what it takes to get a student to learn to read, and they're not saying that a student in a rural school learns to read differently than a student in an urban school. We're also looking at social emotional learning. Part of the grant that's new this time versus previously is we're trying to get an understanding about how their participation in the program may help improve their social emotional development through that one-on-one relationship with the tutor. And I think that's something that's been talked about previously here. As we're measuring social emotional learning development of students, and we've asked teachers to report out on what they're seeing with the students. So thank your teachers for doing that assessment for us. And that might be different as well. You know, to be honest, no matter where you go, most of the tutors are white. You know, so there's some racial differences there in urban environments, urban schools, maybe rural schools. And so how that plays out with that relationship might be different. We'll have to see.
And the other part of that is kind of the same when we're talking about interventions in reading that we might be doing, and it is outside of Title I, so just keep that in mind too. We do interventions in different tiers that it's not just Title I or not Title I.
Okay.
That might impact
Sure.
that, but also with SEL, with our social emotional learning, the things that we're trying to implement, being able to disaggregate out the fact that is it because of this relationship, which is not going to hurt.
Right.
But we also are increasing our Tier 1 interventions with our students through our counseling department, through our trauma-sensitive schools, you know, so there's a lot of different things going
Sure.
on.
Sure.
And so that's my, you know, my investment in this is to make sure that we're reporting out data and looking at it in a way that is inclusive of everything that's going on in the district.
Right. Well, no, yeah, and thank you for reminding me about that. You know, this is why you do a randomized study at the end of the day, because when you don't do a randomized study, depending on what vantage point you're coming from on this, people are really good at accepting credit for things that are part of a larger process. They see, okay, well, my students are in my project, in my program, they grew this much on social emotional development, that's thanks to me. And then someone else looks at it and says, no, that's thanks to me. And then everybody just reports to their supervisors like how great their students did, and then everybody gets credit for it when we don't know anything at the end of the day. Randomized study takes all of that and cuts right through it. Everybody in control group, everybody in the Future Forward program is in the same school, getting the same social emotional development resources, interventions, all these things. Everybody's getting the same, except for now one group is getting Future Forward and the other group is not. And so if there's a difference between those two groups, then we can attribute that to Future Forward, where we can't do that with any other method. So that's where we're going with this, and that's why it's a hard thing to do, randomized study. I think some people, myself included, can sometimes feel uneasy about keeping some kids from getting the program 1 year. But at the end of the day, it's really important that we know what kind of impact the program is having, so that you know if this is something you might want to invest in the future, versus not making some hard choices and then not knowing anything at the end of the day, and then maybe continuing something that actually isn't having a benefit, and now you're wasting money and things like that. So that's why we do these types of hard, rigorous types of studies.
My understanding is that special education students that were identified are not part of it.
That's right. They can be in the program, they're just not in the evaluation. So, again, we do the randomized study. We want to exclude students who are in special ed or who became in special ed during the course of the study in both groups. They can still get the program, they can still get help. We just don't have the ability to estimate the impact on that small of a group, so we don't want to confuse things a bit.
One of the things that I always thought would be neat, if on the state report cards, it would list out like what reading program or something every district is using. So we're using one in Alabama, would use it a different one, and they just love to know which ones actually work better than others.
Right. Well, we did. We said okay, what are you guys using for each site? Okay, who got different interventions? What interventions? And there wasn't one school that was using the same thing as any other school, and all 15 of them. I mean, the 2 here were, but looking outside of school districts, nobody's using the same stuff. Even in Milwaukee Public Schools, you can go to one school and they're using entirely different interventions as the school down the street. And so I don't even know what half of them are, so we're having to Google them and figure out, what does this one do? What does this one do? You know, 'cause there's just thousands of these programs out there.
It costs a lot of money too.
I know, they cost a lot of money, right? I mean, it's good money. Yeah, I should, create one.
No, we don't need another.
So I think that's my contact information. And you can email me.
That should be your next thing you study.
Yeah,
Go find all of them in northern Wisconsin and compare the results.
yeah, sure.
Just compare the results of the reading program, and you should apply for that grant.
Well, it seems like a lot of district administrators might be interested in the results of that. Might be like, wanting to have the most effective intervention programming for their students. So it would be, I think there'd be some buy-in for some districts to participate. All right, any questions from this side of the room? Make sure I'm not missing anybody. We're going to be working with you guys for at least a couple of years. So, my guess is that this won't be the last time, unless I really bomb today, this won't be the last time that I'm here to talk to you all. I want to make sure that you guys feel comfortable contacting me if you have any questions, if you have any ideas. If you want to follow up with that kind of longitudinal look on how your Title I students or other interventions participants have done previously compared to this year, I'm happy to have those conversations. So.
Did you guys vet out the PALS issue? Because we maybe, did you guys determine, because we might be going away from PALS, and that's kind of a big thing.
It is. You're not the only site that's not using the PALS or, hypothetically not using the PALS. We've talked to the Department of Ed and had some conversations about it. There may be a way around it. We think there is. We would need some data from the district to make it work, but I think it's certainly better giving us some data than having to do another assessment or anything like that. Probably too much information, but what we would probably need is the individual item results for your students this first year, so that we could do some analysis on how the results, how the properties of the statistical properties of your results, how that works, because then that can prove to the Department of Ed that it is a valid assessment to use for this purpose. We're going to assume that you get these results, that you don't maybe necessarily give them to your teachers, but that maybe we could get those results. We could do the analysis, prove that this is a valid assessment. We think it probably is. We did some research on the assessment. They've never seen it before. So there's a lot of assessments out there too. There's so many assessments. And so we would probably be the first to use this assessment as a part of one of these studies, but that'd be fine as long as you guys are willing to work with us on getting the data to make it work.
What are we switching to?
Well, Fastbridge, but we're not really sure if we still have to discuss if we're going to go away totally from PALS because of 4K, but 4K isn't in this study. So I don't, even if we did that.
So how do we fix that? I just don't have the cost of it.
We have not. It was at the end of the year, the school year, so our coaches were involved in the vetting process, a small pilot of teachers, and then in the rush of things, at the end of the year, the first training session to take a look at it was today. Yesterday, sorry, and in Kelly's absence, Amy has been in contact for that.
And it is a screener that's K-12, which is...
Well, be careful that there's not norms. We don't need to get into that, but anyway.
We would have to create the numbers.
Yeah, there's a technical manual though that comes along with
Oh, yeah, sure, I did not.
So I'm sure if you're going to get whatever.
Well, so my understanding of the assessment is, we're going to do this, maybe you guys can clarify, is that it's personalized to your local context, like that your assessment using Fastbridge may be different than another district.
It's a, what would you call it, kid answers, it's going to take them based on their answer. It's an adaptive test.
No.
So
Not for early.
not for them, for K, not K2?
No,
Not
not
the K2?
K1.
Yeah.
K1 is not.
Their second grade is.
Second grade
is
is,
study.
Adaptive assessment.
I think second grade is adaptive, not K1.
Okay.
Well, PALS isn't normed either, or based. I mean, there are like expected scores and all of that criteria. It's criteria based though. So the question though with the fast bridge that I was having was though, because it said it was normed to local context on their website.
It is normed to local and national. It's only through 8th grade is that it's,
There are.
so it will be normed, kindergarten, first and second is normed local as well as national norms.
Okay, so there will be national norms and
Just through
so,
8th grade
so
currently.
whoever is doing the assessment, like the student doing the assessment here is taking the same assessment as someone else doing it somewhere else.
It's nationally normed, yes.
Okay, all right.
Okay, Curtis, I think you can just continue that discussion.
Sure, yeah, no. I'm glad though, I appreciate you helping me understand that a little bit.
I do actually.
No, thank you.
It keeps me on my toes. Yeah. I was doing my part this weekend in whatever role I could, but yeah.
Thank you.
All right, so nice to meet you. Yes.
I had a stuff for.
All right, sure. Sure, backstory here?
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. All right, thank you.
Together.
I think you were right, keep going.
Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on to board action, and item A is ratify administrative salaries as presented June 25th, 2019.
So when we discussed these in closed session, I checked with legal counsel because we didn't intend to approve them in closed session, but that is what happened. And while he said, this is Dean Dietrich, that was okay, for transparency's sake, he suggests that you ratify, or in other words, approve them again, this time in open session.
I'll make a motion to approve the salary plan.
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion or questions?
I was wondering if we could table this till our next meeting and have a little more discussion. Because I've got some questions, some things I'd just like to discuss. But
We can, but they were already approved. So but we can put it back on.
don't look at me like that. Yeah, I would like to.
Right to ask questions, so.
I would like to, if it's agreeable to everyone.
So if I make the motion before she tables it?
No, tabling takes precedence. Tabling, any time tabling takes precedence. Until and unless you adjourn the meeting. That's the only time that it can, otherwise tabling has precedence over others.
So do we have to vote on tabling it?
Usually with the tabling, you don't have to.
It's just tabled. Somebody has to
It
table
is-
it.
it is tabled until and unless somebody takes it off the table. That's my understanding.
The only ever time I remember this is Jeannie wanted to table something and then we voted on it, didn't we? Was that like 3 years ago?
So I would need clarification then. You approved them on June 25th. So we are tabling,
The discussion, what you want to have in closed session?
Can't mention names.
But I think
But then maybe closed session.
then somebody second
We
it and
really
vote on
wouldn't have to table it, we could just discuss it.
Table it and second.
closed session?
Second and table.
But does it pass then?
it already passed on June
Yeah,
25th.
table, yes, you need a second.
I don't know, I'm really confused now. You just
You just need a second.
I thought
you just
that
need to
when we did it in closed
vote yes or
session,
no
we
on
were
that
just having
We
a
just
discussion about it, and did we?
She has the
we
right to
voted on
bring it up. It's higher order.
Right,
But
and then
you still
I
need
didn't know
somebody
it
to
was a
second her
done deal,
motion.
and this was
Second
just.
her motion.
Second, her motion to take up.
But the more I thought
And you
about
only
it, the
need a
more I would
simple
like to have had
majority
some discussion about
to
it,
vote it
but
up or down.
if it's done, it's done.
Okay,
So I don't know where to go with this now.
so Mary has asked to table it, but it needs a second to table it. And if we don't get a second, then it's
Dies on its own.
just dies on its own.
Okay.
Okay, any further discussion or comments?
I do want to mention, I know all of the folks that are on the list there, they're very well deserving of the raises. I still want to go back to my original, there are two on that list that did not even receive the cost of living of 2.42%. Am I right or wrong?
You're right.
So I think we need at least to have everybody get up to that 2.42%. And that's, that's just across the board for everybody. I mean, we had some that, I don't want to say the percentages of the raises because I don't know if I'm allowed to, but I think we need to see that at least all the administrative staff receives that 2.42% cost of living. So, that's...
Then there could be an amendment to the motion, right? What's on here, so that the tabling died, get back to the original motion to approve this. So you're making a second amendment?
I would like to amend the motion to read that all the administration staff receive at least the 2.42% cost of living increase. Am I saying that correctly?
So you were trying to amend the motion we
Yes.
already
But it
passed.
is, but it is in
But it was
front.
already approved at
It
what it
was already
was.
approved in June, so I don't think we can do that.
Why not? Because you're ratifying the motion. You're ratifying this. So you can change it.
No, I can't. Nobody else wanted to table it.
Yeah, my gut feeling would be that we've already approved it.
It has been approved.
You can't change that motion.
I think the only thing you can actually do here is you can ratify the original, but then you can also run a second motion to indicate that in addition to the salaries that were approved, that those that did not receive a 2.42% increase be brought up to that level. So I think you can handle that as a separate motion.
I think that would be right, Mike. Thank you. Okay, any further discussion? All right, we're going to go ahead and do a roll call.
So this is for the
This
approval of the resignation?
This is only what's in
Okay,
front of you.
all right.
We're roll calling the 2.4.
No,
Nope,
you're only
Just the
doing what
original
is
motion, Bob.
It's the original.
the
To
salary.
approve the salary plan.
Noel Deep,
Yes.
Jeannie Long,
Yeah.
Mary Newfield,
No.
Danny Pyatt,
Yes.
JD Schrader,
Yes.
Jim Balzer,
Yes.
Mike Boldig,
Yes.
Andy Mary.
Yes. Okay,
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion.
okay.
I'd like to move that all the administrative staff receive at least the minimum of 2.42% cost of living increase. We need a beginning, is that what you just?
We need a second to go any further.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, any discussion?
I'm probably going to vote no on this because I'm just going to leave it up
So
to...
you wait, you can't do it now, hold on. When the call is
Oh, didn't we just ask for any discussion? You can't say how you're going to vote?
No. If you have anything to discuss about the motion, goes and talk about it.
Okay. Okay. Any discussion or questions on the motion? Then I guess we'll just go ahead and do a Roll call vote.
Jeannie Long.
No.
Mary Newfeld.
No.
Danny Pyatt.
Yes.
JD Schrader.
No.
Jim Balzer.
No.
Mike Boldig.
Yes.
Noel Deeb.
No.
Andy Mary.
No.
Pardon me?
No. Okay, we will move on to item B, amend the 2018-19 budget.
Okay, every year I come to you in July and we talk about how we ended the year, and our auditors like us to true the budget up. So the last time, there's 2 columns. I want you to open the first document, which is in your board docs, and I think it's the one to the left. Skip there.
Final budget amendment.
Yeah, and I want you to go to the second page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk first about revenues, I'm going to talk a little bit about expenses, then we're going to go into fund balance. So you have 2 columns. One is the adopted budget, and that was adopted at the October meeting after we set the levy. And the second is the amended budget, which is the information I presented tonight. So I'd like you to go and move down to the second page and look for the little box that's titled Total Revenues. And it's right before the little section on fund balance.
Yep.
So if you look at that, we finished the year with revenues of $27,129,222, which is $103,000 more than we had approved at the October budget. So we had, it's everything from admissions to grant receipts that we received that would make up that $100,000 difference. Back in October, you approved at the same time you adopted the budget, the expenditures of $900,000 coming out of fund balance for 2 purchases. One was for classroom furniture with up to $270,000 worth of expenditure. And you can see there that I'm reporting that expenditure was shared with the AGR funds, and the obligation from the general fund was $155,205. Then you also authorized expenditures from the fund balance of $630,000 for the HVAC project at North. 4 funds bid was $691,678. So we expended those funds from fund balance. Then we had grant carryovers of $404,347 for total funds of $28,318,774. Now I can go through each one of the lines if you have questions, but do you have questions on the variance between what was adopted on revenue sources from October to the amended budget now? I know it's a lot of numbers. Let's go down and take a look at total expenditures and other financing. Okay, so we finished the year with expenditures of $27,592,809. And so if we look at what was authorized versus how we finished the year, we finished the year with $737,638 less expenditures than were budgeted. That's roughly 2.6% of that variance is 2.6% of total expenditures. And there's a couple areas when you start looking at those, I'm going to call them functions. So in the expenditure area, we have instructional areas and we have support service areas. And within those areas, we have salaries, benefits, supplies, contracted services, everything we do within one of those categories. And there's really 4 areas where we have differences. The undifferentiated curriculum, we had a variance there of 5%. And that has to do with primarily elementary expenditures. In the 120,000 area regular curriculum, that's middle school and high school. and we had a 4% variance. And those areas are also areas where we have grant expenditures involved. So that 400,000 that I talked about, that's going to be primarily in those two areas, as well as if you move down to support services under instructional staff services, you can see that we had a large variance there too. So, and then when you look at that support services area, and then you move all the way down to the 290,000 area. Last year, DPI changed some accounting codes, and they changed the way we recorded technology. And within that technology expenditure, we budgeted back in October all the technology expenditures to go into the 290,000 area. What we learned over the course of the year with training from DPI is that we also could code it to the 220,000 area. So expenditures that you see where the 290,000, the amended budget is less, is because some of those funds were transferred to the 220 area.
What's the benefit of that?
It was just a new accounting requirement that's filtered down through the federal government. We also have things like when you think of 220,000 area, that's where we have professional development. That's where we have a lot of contracted services, such as what we're doing with Connie Persick. Those are areas that are funded through grants that probably in most cases like the AGR funds, common school library funds, none of those funds in that 220,000 area were finalized by the time we adopted the budget in October. We got that at the end of October and the 1st of November, those allocations. So that's primarily what the difference is. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about the furniture purchase. In terms of the net expenditures, we had $114,000 that wasn't expended for the furniture. We finished the year, when we started the year with $404,000 in grants. We finished the year with grant carryover of $407,000. And when we start talking grants, I know it gets a little confusing. The way state grants, for the most part, work is we get an allocation, we get allotment. So if we're looking at, let's say, special ed aid is an example, a good example. We get categorical aid for special ed purchase or expenditures from this year. We're going to get that aid next year. So it's a formula grant. We're going to get the money, and if we don't expend it all, we're going to carry it over because it's assigned, not that particular grant, but like AGR is assigned for that function only. So we get an allocation. We're going to get all the money, and then whatever we don't spend, we have to carry over and keep it segregated. When you look at the federal grant programs like Title and IDEA, those grants, we get, I'm going to call it an allocation. We apply, we're awarded a certain amount. We build the budget based on that amount. But we only get the revenue after we expend the money and we make a grant claim. So that money then is kind of like a first in, first out. So we're going to end the year with some grant carry or an allotment, an unallocated allotment that we're going to carry over to this year. But that's not really reported on the budget. So when you're looking at grant carryover, and I talk about grant carryover in the Fund 10 area, that's money primarily with, we've got some technical education grants in there, but primarily Sage AGR. There's a little bit of money for Neboken that's being carried over in there. It's in many different sources. We're taking, because it's designated for a specific purpose, and we're assigning that as carryover for the next year. So now let's jump up to the top and let's talk a little bit about fund balance. Unless people have questions on specific areas within that support service or instructional area. All right, so I've given you more detail. Normally at the budget hearing, I give you the same detail. But when we adopt the budget, since it's not at a particular ending point or starting point, we pretty much leave it out. But our beginning fund balance is the same. The $276,424 non-spendable, that's our July insurance premium that we pay in June. We're obligated to pay. They want us to book that as non-spendable payable, because we've already really paid it. The next item there that is a restricted fund, and these are formal designations by PPI. So when we look at that balance, that $101,142,034, that's the HRA piece of our insurance plan. So that's money designated specifically for the HRA reimbursement of medical expenses. Then we talked about, I told you that our grant carryover is $407,000, and that's primarily AGR, CTE, and a little bit in the Vulcan. Then these unassigned areas are areas that I want you to know the purpose of how we're using the money. And we've got $3,111,879 designated for cash flow purposes. Then I think it's prudent that we designate $500,000 for an emergency, just so that we always keep that much money around. You know, our given payroll is between $500,000 and $600,000. So I think it's important that we always have enough money to pay at least one payroll. And then in the event, particularly in the wintertime, if we have something catastrophic go down, we have the funds to cover that. So we're going to end the year with an unassigned, and why I use unassigned is unassigned is a term we have in our fund balance policy under Neola. And the policy says we shall not let that go below 10% of prior year expenditures. So this year we're going to finish, when you add the $500,000 to the $3.1 million, we're going to finish with $3,611,879 or 12.7% of last year's Fund 10 expenditures. Okay? So we're on the lower end. And by presenting it this way, I want you to know that we are moving that, the balance of the $900,000 that we didn't spend. So we ended the year essentially $463,586 in the red of what we spent out of the $900,000. Make sense? Okay, I don't think I want to, you know, I'm certainly willing to go through each one of the funds if you have questions. Fund 21, just so you know, is donations. Fund 27 is special education. And what's important to know with Fund 27 is Fund 27 can't have a fund balance. So that transfer, we talked about that inter-fund transfer amount, that has to balance Fund 27 out. So if we receive more aids and more revenues in Fund 27, our transfer amount is less. The other thing that's important to know, the general fund supports primarily all of the salary and benefits in Fund 27. The grant covers everything else, idea. So all of our teachers and the majority of our staff are coming out of the general fund, but they're tagged, they're identified by the account code in Fund 27. And then moving down, Fund 38 is our prior service debt. You know, that's that prior debt we have to fund WRS that was imposed long ago by the system. That's got 3 or 4 more years to go. Fund 46 is the balance on our capital, long-term capital improvement fund. Fund 50 is food service. And if you look there, Sarah had a little bit of profit, $175,000 worth of profit this year. DPI is telling her that she has got to look at ways to reduce that profit. So she's looking at ways to replace equipment, improve the menu, those kinds of things. Fund 80 is the pool, and you can see that there's, that one came out very, very close to budget. So with that, I'll entertain questions if you have them.
Tim, I'm just slightly confused on that. Remind me, our policy says 10, we want to try to keep 10% in fund balance, or it used to say 15 or something, but then we spent all the money.
Well, Neola, when we changed to Neola, it said that the original policy, if Bobby can correct me, I thought it said that it was to avoid short-term borrowing. We changed the fund balance policy. The old fund balance policy used to be between 10 and 15%.
Okay.
And I recommended to the board that we change it, that it not drop below the unassigned, so the cash flow in the emergency, not drop below 10%.
And we're at 12%.
We're at 12%, 12.7.
In the unassigned.
So
In the unassigned.
So we're happy.
Well, knowing that we're gonna short-term borrow. And if you look at your, and again, I wouldn't, when you looked at the board bills, we gave you a cash position. And if you looked at that cash position compared to our fund balance, you're gonna see that it's off by well over 500,000 less than what we're reporting. So that is one moment in time at year end on June 30th. Other questions?
Does that need a motion or anything?
I'd like you just to
Yep,
approve the
okay.
budget as presented. It's fine.
I move the board accept the 2018-2019 amended budget as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion or questions? Then we'll do a roll call.
Mary Newfeld,
Yes.
Danny Pyatt,
Yes.
J.D. Schrader,
Yes.
Jim Balzer,
Yes.
Mike Boldig,
Yep.
Noel Deep,
Yes.
Jeannie Long,
Yes.
Andy Mary.
Yes. And we will move on to,
And yeah, just one other thing. The other document that you see attached there is an abbreviated version of what I presented, and that's what we'll publish in the paper as our official notice of amendment. And I just wanted you to be aware of that when you see it.
okay, we'll move on to short-term borrowing.
I just wanted to, I mentioned that we're going to need short-term borrow, and I'd like to get the board's approval to, because I have to speak with attorneys to draft the documents and to start working on the necessary paperwork before short-term borrowing. So I normally ask that you approve that I go ahead and start working on short-term borrowing. And we'll actually approve the lending notes in October.
And that just states statute that makes you work with attorneys to do this. It doesn't seem like it should be that hard.
And there's no dollar bill on that, it's just,
Yeah, well, what we'll do is we'll analyze our cash flow and then they'll look at our tax receipts and they'll set some limit, but normally that number is, I like to cover ourselves with at least one payroll and then plus the health insurance premium. So that's usually between $600,000 and $900,000.
Seems like last year, didn't we authorize 600,000?
680, I think, last year.
so what do you want for a number?
To now, I just want us to be able to start working on the paperwork and getting ready that you approve me to enter in agreements with attorneys to draft those documents for us.
I'll make a motion to approve that the board approve the request for the short-term borrowing.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? We'll do a roll call on that too.
Danny Pyatt,
Yes.
J.D. Schrader,
Yes.
Jim Balzer,
Yes.
Mike Boldig,
Yep.
Noel Deep,
Yes.
Jeannie Long,
Yes.
Mary Newfeld,
Yes.
and Andy Mary.
Yes. And we'll move on to CISA 2 contracts. If somebody'd like to make a motion.
I move the board approve the CISA 2 contracts for consulting services for elevating success for English learners as follows. High school, $2,725, middle school, $2,725, East Elementary, $9,725, North Elementary, $45,450, West Elementary, $9,725, and the EL coordinator fee of $2,000 for the 2019-2020 school year for a grand total of $72,850.
Second.
So in Kelly's absence, I'll walk you through these contracts. I won't go through each one, but for EL, or English Language Learners, Kelly would tell you we haven't been in compliance with what DPI expects. So Our go-to person is Terry Marishin, something like that, at CISA 2. I've met her. I believe you've met her because the district has used her as a consultant in EL for several years. However, we didn't have a progressive program to serve our EL learners, and so Terry is helping us design that program. How are we paying for this over $72,000? I broke it down. For the 3 elementary schools, that money will come from AGR funds, and our AGR budget is over $500,000, just to give you context. And then for the middle school and high school, because we can't use AGR funds based on the ages, then that $6,000 roughly is coming from Title II. So that's where the money is coming from, and Terry, I just spoke with her on the phone again prior to this meeting to see if there's anything else I should share. She's been analyzing our data, and we have plenty of room for growth with our EL learners, and so that's where she comes in. She'll provide professional development for our staff, because really, if you think of, and we often say it with special education too, the best lesson should be good for all learners, or the best delivery. And so that's what we are doing. If you're wondering why North Elementary is so significantly higher, 1, it does have to do with the population, but 2, Terry will consider that as her home base. So some of those design fees, she just attached to one school instead of all schools. And she wanted to make sure I passed along that this is not something she hopes is a recurring, she'd like us, and I do believe her, to wean away from relying on her. And once we have a viable program, we'll do just that.
So the $72,000, is that just for consulting fees? Because you said there's some chapter teachers and stuff?
Yes,
Does
so
that include that too?
it
or-
does. It
Okay.
covers everything related to our CISA 2 contract for EL. And the $2,000 is her stipend for being our coordinator, which I thought was reasonable.
Okay.
How many English learning students do we have in the district? Do we know?
That is
Approximately between 36 and 40 that are currently identified as EL, but we potentially are underreporting.
Right.
That's part of what we need to get better at.
And Terry would tell you that that's a fairly low number compared to some districts, but still statistically significant, so that when we do take a look at and their achievement scores are low, we're at the bottom end of it in the state, she tells me. So. Thank you, Heidi.
Any further questions or comments? We'll do a roll call.
JD Schrader,
Yes.
Jim Balzer,
Yes.
Mike Foley,
Yes.
Noel Dean,
Yes.
Jeannie Long,
Yes.
Mary Newfeld,
Yes.
Jenny Pyatt,
Yes.
and Andy Mary.
Yes.
That's what I figured.
I guess so. Okay, we will move on to CISA 9, the added service agreement.
So this one is far more simplistic. You're accustomed to Title I services, Title I plans. I bet the name Casey Gretzinger is familiar to you. She works at CISA 9, and this is just an add-on to our regular CISA 9 contract, because you'll see it dated June. That's when we were able to finalize what those dates of service would entail. So we do have this each year, and if you click on the description, you'd see a more in-depth description of what this will cover.
I move the board approve the add-on service agreement with CISA 9 for an estimated cost of $10,075 to provide additional services as per the 2019-2020 Title I Services Action Plan.
Second that.
Okay, any further discussion or questions? Yeah, we'll do a roll call.
Jim Balzer,
Yes.
Mike Foley,
Yes.
Noel Deep.
Yes.
Jeannie Long.
Yes.
Mary Newfeld.
Yes.
Danny Pyatt.
Yes.
JD Schrader.
Yes.
And Andy Mary.
Yes. And we'll go on to item F, CP Consulting Coaching Plan and Contracts.
There's a lot of information here. The why behind this coaching plan is the first attachment. It's very comprehensive, and I think should answer most of the questions. You may remember Connie Persick visited us at a recent committee of the whole meeting at the middle school and presented the results of the teacher survey. So teachers who underwent AGR coaching, and again, that's achievement gap reduction. And basically, it's the title of the money, the grant money that's available to us. So because our teachers at the elementary level responded so favorably in their coaching survey, we did intentionally plan to grow the program, and that's why you see 6 contracts here. One would be for IAs, and that would mean our instructional assistants. We want to bring them on board with some of the classroom practices that we're doing. That one is listed, if you would click on it, and I'm not sure which one it is, but for $4,800. Again, the bulk of the work is assigned to North at over $66,000. And then the other 2, East and West, are just over $44,000. Those dollars would all come from the AGR fund or budget. And as you know, I mentioned that's over $500,000 to put it in context. And again, the high school and middle school, adding them for the first time, they are not eligible for AGR dollars, so those will come from Title II.
I move the board approve the contracts with CP Consulting building instructional practices to reduce the achievement gap as follows: instructional assistant coaching $21,375, high school $14,250, middle school $14,250, East Elementary School $44,175, North Elementary $66,262.50, and West Elementary School for $44,175 for an estimated total cost of $192,050.50.
Second that.
Okay, any additional questions or comments?
Julie, is this something that we're gonna wean ourselves off of, eventually get away from?
Over time, yes, but this,
to-
I think I understand your question completely. This is a larger scale, but yes.
Okay.
We would like to continually grow our universal instruction so that teachers feel comfortable, on their own.
Yeah.
And I presume the cost at North is a little higher because it's a 3-track school rather than a 2-track.
Okay, anything else? We'd go into a roll call.
Mike Bolick.
Yes.
Noel Deep.
Yes.
Jeannie Long.
Yes.
Mary Newfeld.
Yes.
Danny Pyatt.
Yes.
JD Schrader.
Yes.
Jim Balzer.
Yes.
And Andy Mary.
Yes. And we'll go into item G, Partners Agreement with NTC.
I move the board approve the service agreement with North Central Technical College, which will provide the alternative high school program from September 1st, 2019 to June 1st of 2020 for a total cost of $162,945.
I'll second that.
Okay, any comments, questions? Is that cost comparable to past years?
Yeah, the cost of, that's the total cost of the program. There's a teacher salary that we are paying that's part of that program. And if you read the detailed language in there, we subtract that cost of salary and benefits for the instructor off of the total agreement. So it's very comparable.
All right.
And the rate is set by the state legislature.
Okay.
And has someone been hired to fill this position?
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Noel Deep.
Yes.
Jeannie Long.
Yes.
Mary Newfeld.
Yes.
Danny Pyatt.
Yes.
JD Schrader.
Yes.
Jim Balzer.
Yes.
Mike Bowley.
Yes.
Andy Mary.
Yes. And we'll go on to co-curricular code revisions.
I move the board approve the revisions to the co-curricular code as presented.
Seconded.
So what you will find in the attachment is the entire code with just the language in red that was added. And it really became apparent as we went throughout the year and had either code discussions or code violations. So I worked with Tom Schofield and Clint Rogers, and then I know others weighed in like the coaches. And so if you have any questions about what is in red, it wasn't a lot, but like the violations, we had to amend our social media piece of that to be more current. With vaping being a thing, we had to change just the, I don't know if cigarettes was in there, but something that's more current, unfortunately. And so not a lot, the intent of the code has remained just the same.
Julie, what about that statement there, attending and or remaining under the violations?
Okay.
I understand going right before G.
So you're thinking like if someone's at a party and they're drinking?
I understand the party, but what if the student's at their own home and their parents are, I mean, they can't leave their home, is that?
Well, the parents drinking is not a code violation, though.
Right before G.
Yeah, but it says in remaining where the code is.
Julie, it's in the academics and social media section, under attendance.
Help me out there.
Attendance,
First
sub-1.
page.
The intent of that is to,
The parties, I get that.
and to leave if there is any illegal activity going on there. The last code was not specific to that instance, where according to what is written in the code, a student could be at a party, stay at a party, and not be participating, but and it would not be a code violation. This, I guess it was implicitly, it could have been, but it was gray area, and we wanted to be very specific in how that's worded in this code when we reviewed it.
Remove yourself from the temptation.
So if you have any underage drinking going on, you need to be out. But if you're at a party where the adults are drinking, I don't think that's a code violation.
Correct.
Correct.
That's how I interpreted that.
What if you're in your house and
That's what I'm,
one of your siblings is drinking, your underage siblings is drinking?
Then
But
you
it's
report
your
it
own
to
house.
your parents.
Huh?
Then you call your parents.
No, they're there drinking with them.
Well, in Wisconsin, it is.
I know you can't lay everything out there, but
The intent is that they
Is the
need
parties.
to remove themselves from the situation.
What if
So
they
they
don't
can go
have
in their bedroom,
transportation?
close the door.
then they call me.
I mean, yeah. No, I mean,
You
you
available
know,
at midnight?
sometimes
I will.
And
they
that,
just go wait outside.
Busy
in
guy.
the
I don't know.
parts that I've been, the meetings that I've been a part of, those are all factors taken into consideration. But one thing that the code hadn't addressed, as Clint said, is those who willingly attended a party and then their defense was, I didn't partake.
Okay.
And we would like, with coach's endorsement and super advisor's endorsement, to say, don't even willingly attend.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
Could we make drinking legal in high school athletics and not be a violation? Is that even allowed? Can you like still participate in the WIA?
No.
Because I think that would get you reelected to the school.
No, JD.
No.
Don't even go down that road.
Okay, if there are no further questions, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we'll go on to item I, athletic trainer service agreement with Langley.
I move the board approve the athletic trainers services agreement with Langley Aspirus as presented.
Second.
Okay. Is there a financial thing on this?
No.
Any questions or comments?
Isn't that pretty much the same as we've seen before?
Yep.
Yes. The other one was with the occupational therapy, I think, out of Health and Motion last month.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes, and we'll go on to item J, additional office support at Antigo High School.
I move the board approve the additional administrative assistant position at the high school office.
I'll second.
So what you see in the attachment is the position analysis review. Clint worked closely with his office staff over the course of the entire year. And we had several meetings, and I really tried to steer them away from this request. To their credit, they did try several options and had a plan to backfill. But last time I met with Clint and Janet Krivishine is when they presented this information, and I agreed that it could come to the board for your approval.
And Janet really wanted to be here tonight, but they're still without power, so she is at home helping with shifting around different things.
So the middle school one, you recall that addition we added fairly early in the year. And for various reasons, because 8th grade was already housed at the high school, and then we had Amy and Heather supporting the high school. I just felt like that was our trial run, and we should try it and take a year to prepare without their support. But as you'll read, there were gaps in work efficiencies and responsibilities.
So I guess what questions do you have about anything in that position analysis?
Speaks for itself.
You did the research.
You and Janet did a great job.
Yeah.
It's very clear.
And it was, I just want to point out in there that Amy Dons and Heather McCann, and really the whole middle school staff, they supported like you can't believe. I mean, it would have been very easy just to say, the 8th grade's over there, can you just collect those, or can you, whatever little tasks there were, and they were on it all the time. And Heather and Amy helped out a ton over with 8th grade situations with teaching staff, with students, and I can't say enough positive things about them.
Okay, any additional questions? And then we'll do a roll call.
Jeannie Long.
Yes.
Mary Newfeld.
Yes.
Danny Pyatt.
Yes.
J.D. Schrader.
Yes.
Jim Balzer.
Yes.
Mike Folday.
Yes.
Noel Deep.
Yes.
Andy Marion.
Yes. And we'll move on to item K, additional instructional assistant.
Can I have a clarification on this before we make the motion? Is it 1 or 2? If you click on the attachment, I think it brings up 2.
It is two additional, one would be at North full-time and one split between East and West.
I'll make the motion to approve the 2 positions for the instructional assistant behavioral support positions.
I'll second that one.
Emphasis noted.
Any questions or comments?
What are the qualifications? I mean, what are the, can just anybody apply for this position, or do they have to have any? Come on.
Yes, go
Help
ahead.
me.
Qualifications.
Qualifications, yes.
We are opening it internally and externally, pending approval. And then the salary would be based on those qualifications.
But that's what she's asking, what are the qualifications?
The qualifications right now are just an instructional assistant, and so it could be, we can put in there whatever you want. We aren't posting it yet. This is just, it's not a certified staff. It's not a certified staff person, so it would be a support staff person. So if you want to say minimum requirements are a bachelor's, the salary right here is $16 to $18 an hour. So if you read the position analysis, it's not to be teaching these students, it's to be supporting what's going on in the classroom and supporting what we're already trying to do. Our regular ed teachers is support working together with them in conjunction with the principals at the schools. So we definitely want somebody who wants to do the job and wants to work with students that struggle with behavior. We also want somebody who is open to training, because that's part of this, is that we're going to, part of what that AGR funds are to be able to work with Connie to provide PD, not just for these people, but to all of our IEPs as well around that. So if you want to put a minimum of qualification, we can, I mean, obviously high school diploma, but beyond that, it's up to you guys.
We've had behavior people already, correct?
Yeah, so.
And what were their qualifications?
So
did they
this
have to have a degree, or?
This is different.
Okay.
So Veronica is moving into a school psych position. She was we can go into the history, but how she was hired and what her job duties were has morphed over the last few years. She was a teacher, she had a degree in special education and regular education, and her role was different. We're trying to do within the funds that we have.
But basically what we are trying to get at is, do they need only a high school diploma? Do they need to have a bachelor's degree? Do they have to have some experience with dealing with children, emotional children? Or do they need to have a background in psychology? That's what we are trying to get at.
Yeah, and that's what I'm at. Right now, for a $16 an hour, we can't put bachelor's degree on there. So I'm just saying, like, if you want to put whatever your minimum is, it's going to be, we will put whatever that minimum is going to be.
We have IAs right now who have a passion for or a great skill set in working with kids, and I don't know that we can, it's this trait that I don't know how or where you earn it. I think a lot of it is innate within a personality. So what I take comfort in is anyone who's going to apply for this, I would hope, has that passion or that interest, because it's a tough job. And then we would provide that icing on the cake training, because I believe what they bring to the job would be the most important. And
so when we advertise, they're just going to say that we have a passion for dealing with children, please come, we'll train you on the job.
We're going to say preferred. Whether it's training is preferred or, some educational background is preferred, but it's not going to preclude you from
some experience or something.
Right. Sure. And we have some people in the district that I hope apply. I mean, this will be internal for our support staff. That the other issue is that. When we talked through this, we had extensive conversations with the principals and with the staff who are in, whether it's Megan Murphy or whether it's Veronica, trying to talk about what are our needs based on what we're already trying to do in the district. And so how are we going to get the most bang for our buck? We knew we needed to have full-time. We can't hire part-time people to try to do this job. So, we vetted all that out. To say how are we going to best support them. And certified, we've tried a certified staff to try to cover the district. That's not where we're going to get the most bang for our buck. What we're going to get is having our administrators who are in those buildings now full-time, right? And so they're going to be able to support that person. The regular ed teacher is going to be the one dictating. A certified staff person could be a case manager. This person's not going to case manage students or make educational decisions about the children. They're going to be the ones who are carrying out and supporting them. So, that's kind of how we're looking at these positions.
So you're going to reach out to the potential candidates that you have identified and ask them to?
Well, I have one in mind for sure that I would like to, that's already an IA that I think would be great.
Okay. So this would be slightly more pay than a regular IA? You're right. Okay. Any other questions? Did we make a motion on this yet? Okay. If there's no other questions, we'll do a roll call.
Mary Newfeld?
Yes.
Danny Pyatt?
Yes.
J.D. Schrader?
Yes.
Jim Balzer,
Yes.
Mike Boldig,
Yes.
Noel Deep,
Yes.
Jeannie Long,
Yes.
and Andy Mary.
Yes. Go on to item L, batting cage.
I move the board approve the purchase for the batting cage replacement from Victory Athletics, Inc. in the amount of $14,195.
Okay, so in 2015, we replaced one of the batting cages, or, I'm sorry, put an additional batting cage in the field house here. It's the same identical one that we have priced for here. The existing one at that time was still in good shape, but now has ran its life. So that one was approximately 15 years old now. And the dugout club wants to replace it, and they are funding the entire thing. So it's no cost to us, but it is a big dollar amount, so I wanted to bring it forward to you. The only reason we have one quote is because they're very happy with the one that we put in 5 years ago, and they want the same exact one to replace the
Plus the fact
the
that we
old
have a
one.
championship baseball team here. Kind of would look good if we had.
So yeah, we do only have the one price, and I know that board policy is when we expend district funds to have competitive bidding over 10,000 and your approval, but being it's a booster club purchase, I thought that they could kind of purchase what they want, but I still wanted to keep you guys in the loop and get your approval.
Okay. Any questions? And we'll do a roll call.
Danny Pyatt,
Yes.
JD Schrader,
Yes.
Jim Balzer,
Yes.
Mike Boldig,
Yes.
Noel Deep,
Yes.
Jeannie Long,
Yes.
Mary Newfeld,
Yes.
Andy Mary.
Yes. And we'll move on to item M, high school windows.
I move the board approve the purchase for the high school window replacements from Pella Windows and Doors of Wisconsin in the amount of $14,320.
Second.
So this is out of my budget, but we only have one price because it's an exclusive product. It's the windows here at the high school that have had failing parts and or need replacement parts. We had a little stash of them, but through the years we've exhausted those resources and we're kind of out of extra parts, and we need some replacement pieces and replacement of some of the windows themselves. So it's a bulk price number, but it's the only place we can get that product from. So
you thought, how many windows are you getting?
I believe there's 6 actual windows and then some miscellaneous parts for others. So it's relatively reasonable cost, and it includes installation of the windows. So I think it's a fair price, but again, big building, big amounts of money. So.
Okay, any other questions?
Are these like shatterproof?
No, just the standard.
Are these classroom windows?
Yep.
Okay, we will have a roll call.
JD.
Oh, one more question.
There are 6 windows, you said? So we're going to be rotating more in the future because of getting them all current?
No, this is kind of the ones that are
Understand
really
needed, yeah.
unserviceable. And say like there's a window that has 4 panes.
Sure.
It's typical that the bottom 2, that's where the moisture builds, and that's where we get some rotting and issues in the bottom 2. So they would just replace those bottom 2 windows of a 4-window set.
Gotcha.
Or things of that nature, without doing a full window replacement. That's really something that I would want to look to do a full bid on.
I understand.
This is just a kind of a, not necessarily a Band-Aid, but it's select repairs just to get us through.
Okay, any other questions?
JD Schrader,
Yes.
Jim Balzer,
Yes.
Mike Boldig,
Yes.
Noel Deep,
Yes.
Jeannie Long,
Yes.
Mary Newfeld,
Yes.
Danny Pyatt,
Yes.
and Andy Mary.
Yes. We'll move on to item N, overnight trip.
I move the board approve the 2019 Varsity Volleyball Wisconsin Dells Tournament, August 28, 2019 through August 30, 2019 as presented.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments?
Who coaches the volleyball team? Clint.
Jesse
Jesse
Knutter.
Some of our math teachers.
Any other questions? And all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes, and we'll move on to resignations.
I move the board approve the following resignations. Sadie Boyle, elementary school counselor, and Rachel Boda, teacher at the Antigo Middle School. Ashley Newski, elementary teacher at West, all effective immediately, and Dawn Liss, part-time food service who does not intend to return for the 2019-2020 school year, effective immediately.
Second.
Okay, any questions or comments on those?
Sorry to see him leave. They were all good.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. We'll move on to new hires.
I move the board approve the following new hires. Jennifer Borkert, special education teacher at AHS. Cora Dobrinska, elementary teacher at North. Christine Borkert, English teacher at AHS. And Christina Creevy, special education at AHS. And I hope I didn't kill her last name.
You did well, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, who's second?
Oh, second, I'll second.
Mary. All right. Any questions on this, hirings? No, we'll do a roll call then.
Jim Balzer,
Yes.
Mike Bolton,
Yes.
Noel Deeb.
Yes.
Jeannie Long,
Yes.
Mary Newfeld,
Yes.
Danny Pyatt,
Yes.
J.D. Schrader,
Yes.
Andy Mary.
Yes. And we'll go on to Q, donations.
I move the board accept the following donations. Blue Night Club, $500 for the AHS weight room. Indigo Elks, large number 660 to $500 for the AHS Boys State Baseball Tournament. Winter Endurance, $250 for the Nebokan Environmental Center. Elsa McKenna, $500 for the Clara McKenna Aquatic Center. Lander County Farm Bureau, $300 for the AHS FFA Day on the Farm. Coatis Great Union, $150 for the AHS FFA Banquet. Sudarski Equipment Inc., $250 for the AHS FFA. Special Olympics Wisconsin Inc., $1,000 for the AHS Special Olympics. Special Olympics Wisconsin Inc., $1,000 for the AMS Special Olympics. And BBJX, $300 for Fill a Backpack, Fill a Need, for a total of $4,750.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any comments?
Thank them for their
Thank you very
generosity
Okay.
again.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Mr. President, I'd like to say thanks to whoever made the decision of opening up the aquatic center during this time of our county going through this terrific storms, for our people to be cleaned up.
Yeah, I used it last night, so it's good.
So, whoever made that decision, it's a great idea. And I
Amy
hope there are a lot of
Downs
people that are using it.
made the suggestion, and then ultimately we landed on the aquatic center since it's already open to the public, but
Yeah.
we couldn't agree more.
Absolutely.
Okay. We'll go on to item R to confirm the next meeting is August 27th, 2018, at this location. And then we'll be looking consideration of a motion to adjourn into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.851C, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, specifically for discussion/possible action on waiving liquidation damages to 2 teacher contracts and the performance evaluation for the district administrator.
So moved.
Second.
And a roll call.
Mike Bolton,
Yes.
Noel Deeb,
Yes.
Jeannie Long,
Yes.
Mary Newfeld,
Yes.
Danny Pyatt,
Yes.
J.D. Schrader,
Yes.
Jim Balzer,
Yes.
Andy Mary.
Yes.